Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new League of Legends video. So it is that time once again to talk about the strongest or the Freelo champions of patch 7.3. There's a bunch of new champions to talk about because essentially the meta has become, if this champion is able to abuse the fact that lethality is overpowered at the moment, then that champion is most likely also going to be overpowered. So you're going to be seeing a lot of champions with very similar item builds and even in some cases runes, because you are going to be looking at a very kind of similar type of champions or group of champions. Now this video will be made in collaboration with ProGuides, a very familiar name of a website that tries to improve your overall League of Legends gameplay and knowledge. There's a link to their website down below in the description that I recommend not only checking out, but also trying out the free trial. But with all that being said and done, let's not waste any more time and get right into the Freelo champions of patch 7.3. So starting things off is going to be what I personally believe to be the strongest champion at the very moment, the champion that I absolutely would despise facing on the enemy team and I would absolutely love having on my team, and chances are this champion will be actually banned about 80% of the time. That champion is going to be none other than Graves. This guy is a very kind of special circumstance because not only is he able to abuse lethality, make it work extremely well for himself, deal a lot of damage, he's also somewhat of a marksman champion, so he's got that range advantage when it comes to ganking or just kiting or doing that kind of stuff. And on top of this, he's also got that true grit passive, which makes him actually somewhat tanky to where he's much more difficult to kill than he should be. So not only does he have consistent damage coming out, but he's also got a lot of burst where if a target is simply trapped in a certain area, stunned, snared, or whatever, well, a simple Q to the wall with an ultimate and an auto attack to their face will most likely kill many squishies, especially with the lethality build. His jungle clear isn't all that bad either. He doesn't take too much damage, he's got great ganking potential, and all in all, without question, Graves has to be probably the most overpowered or the most Freelo champion currently of patch 7.3, and even for several patches prior to lethality even being too overpowered. So now taking a quick look at the build you want to do with Graves, you want to run lethality reds and attack speed Quinns. You want Thunderlords for that extra added burst, especially in the earlier part of the game. And for items, you definitely want Red Smite with the Warrior Enchantment, you want Knight's Edge and Yomus to give you that lethality, and then you want to sort of make it scale really well with the Phantom Dancer and the Black Cleaver just for added bonus. Because you are somewhat of a close-ish range champion, so you still need some tankiness, which the Black Cleaver and even the Phantom Dancer somewhat provide. But let's move along to champion number 2. This one is also going to be a jungler, and this is going to be also Hecarim. Now Hecarim, I bet some of you are honestly getting quite tired of me bringing him up, but he's just not getting any nerfs. I don't know why, he's just constantly staying at what he is, and I feel like he is still, even though lethality is very strong at the moment, a very good champion. He can still do his job, he still dishes out that crazy amounts of damage while being tanky, he's got the good wave clear, he's got good jungle presence, he's got good initiation. I mean, he just brings to the team what you want him to bring, and he still does it very, very well. I've already said so many different things about Hecarim because I've included him in these types of videos almost every single time for the past, I don't know, probably about 5 or so of these videos, so there's not much else to say other than the fact that he's very strong, he brings to the team what you want, he's hard to kill, deals a lot of damage, he's got good gap close and initiation, and he's just a good champion. So with all that being said, let's take another quick look at the build you want to do when playing Hecarim. Again, Courage of the Colossus for your mastery, Keystone without question is the one you want to go, Cinderhulk with a blue smite, Trinity Force being your main damage item, and then the rest being somewhat sort of tanky damage-ish items like Dead Man's Plate, and then even things like Spirit Visage, Guardian's Angel, and kind of depends on what you're also facing against the enemy team. But let's stick around in the jungle for just one more champion because as usual, there are always a decent amount of champions that are in the jungle that are also currently very, very strong. And this champion is going to be none other than Jaco or Shaco or whatever way you want to pronounce it. Now this one might be somewhat of a little bit of a surprise pick because personally I don't see him all that often, but after looking at many statistics, it seems like he is considered to be a top tier jungle champion. And at the end of the day, if you really think about it, it's not all that surprising because what does Jaco work well with? Lethality. What's strong at the moment? Lethality. Now Jaco in the early game isn't necessarily the most overpowered, but he actually scales surprisingly well again thanks to the lethality. He's able to get to the backline very easily. His ultimate when lethality comes into play is also extremely strong. He's hard to deal with, and again he just becomes a lot stronger than you would think he should be mid game and especially late game. But even with that being said, he can still definitely do some very interesting mind games and counter jungling strats in the very early parts of the game, but again it will be something very risky. Also, once you finally max out his Q ability, he can stay stealth surprisingly for a very long time, which gives you plenty time to set up the assassination that you want to do. And again, for the most part, especially later on into the game when you have all of your items, if you get to the backline onto the ADC and they have absolutely no armor and you have your main lethality build ready to go, chances are an auto attack, alt auto attack will be enough to kill them and chunk them down in seconds. So all in all, this is going to be a very strong jungle champion that can do a lot of great work and that hasn't really been nerfed yet. So while he's strong, you should definitely try and abuse him. Think of him as being somewhat of the new Kha'Zix. But here's the build that you want to do when playing Jaco jungle. You want to have attack speed Quinns and also flat AD reds. You can even maybe substitute the reds with the lethality, but you'll want the flat AD just to help you clear the jungle a little bit easier. Thunderlords is without question the go-to keystone, and your items are going to be very similar to what we have already seen a few times: Youmuu's, Duskblade, and also Knight's Edge, giving you those 3 beefy lethality items, giving you an insane amount of damage within them as well, and then top it off with that Infinity Edge to synergize with the crit built into your kit, and then finish it off with whichever item you see fit, whether it's Titanic or Ravenous Hydra, or maybe any other offensive item, maybe something like Static Shiv, something like a defensive item like GA. Again, depends on the game that you're playing. But the next champion we'll talk about is in the top lane, but can also be played in the mid lane to some success, and that champion is going to be none other than Quinn. What a surprise, another champion that is AD and is Assassin-E sort of playstyle and works with lethality. I mean, it's just so surprising nowadays, isn't it? But Quinn is actually very strong, especially in the top lane, because a lot of the matchups he'll have are against melee opponents, and Quinn being a ranged opponent, and her E ability also helping her kite them back and deal a lot of damage before the melee champion can get even on you, is extremely effective. She's able to push in the wave quite easily with her Q ability as well, and even combined with her ultimate. But what makes Quinn really strong is her synergy between her ultimate, which gives her that huge roaming and movement speed, with the lethality items, which all of them, by the way, don't forget, give you movement speed out of combat, and also Knight's Edge, giving you that shield. So when you have your ultimate up and you're flying around looking for someone to assassinate, if you have the shield ready to go as well, chances are you get a completely free initiation and engage on that target, and they cannot stop you, and it's very strong. This is just one of those things where you gotta try it out for yourself to truly understand just how ridiculous it can really be. Now, the only bad thing about Quinn is she doesn't necessarily bring that much into the late game, but you know, she can still be quite strong, but there's a lot of other champions that can just simply bring a lot more. So you kind of have to sort of snowball and close off the game at least within the first 30 or so minutes, or it might become a little bit more difficult. But again, with lethality being just so disgusting as it is at the very moment, maybe it really isn't all that bad either. But all in all, a very strong mid lane and top lane champion, even in the jungle if you really want to, so she's a very kind of flex pick. She works well with lethality, she has a lot of good matchups, she can roam and dish out a lot of damage and power in other lanes as well, works well with the lethality, passive movement speed, and also with the Knight's Edge, Banshee's Veil type effect. Very strong champion, highly recommend trying her out. But let's quickly take a look at what kind of build you want to run whenever playing Quinn. So for your runes, you want to run this very kind of standard lethality page. Your mastery is going to be the Thunderlords, and for items, as I'm sure all of you are going to be so surprised by this, you want to run lethality, Youmuu's, Knight's Edge, Duskblade, and then top it off with the Static Shiv or Phantom Dancer, and maybe something like Infinity Edge if you're really snowballing and you want to just completely dominate the game, or something a little bit safer, maybe like a GA, maybe a Banshee's Veil, maybe even something like a Dead Man's Plate, Death's Dance, and things like that. But following Quinn, we also have Talon, which is a mid lane champion, but can also be played top lane successfully. Just like Quinn, Talon is very similar in the sense that he's got a very strong all-in. His Q damage against a melee opponent is insanely strong because you get that free crit. He's got good wave clear, he's got good all-in potential, and getting to the backline and assassinating someone, he works insanely well with lethality. And again, just like Quinn, with the wave clear, he can also roam thanks to his E ability very effectively. But what makes Talon even better is the fact that not only does he synergize with lethality very well, but again, lethality, what does it offer? The passive out of combat movement speed. What does that help him with? His E ability scales off of movement speed with how fast you go over the walls, which is why this plus boosts of mobility and also the active from Youmuu's makes him be able to go over walls and roam to other places around the map, among the fastest of champions in League of Legends, next to someone maybe like Quinn or Twisted Fate Ultimate. But with all that being said, let's take a very quick look at the build you want to run when playing Talon. Again, a very standard rune page, Thunderlords for your keystone, and your items are going to be, once again, lethality items. But the thing about Talon, again, you want to get the boots of mobility because it helps you roam that much faster with your E ability, and Black Cleaver just synergizes with your kit and gives you that much needed CDR that you definitely need. Now the last two champions to discuss very quickly are going to be ones in the bot lane, and the first of which is going to be Varus. This guy's poke at the moment with how lethality works is just abysmally strong. It's difficult to deal with. A lot of people in solo queue will just be very frustrated and won't really know what to do, and if you ever even get slightly ahead, I promise you your Q damage is going to be doing about half HP to a lot of the squishies. And the fact that you can throw it out every few seconds and it's such big range that no one can really even kind of stop you, or they can't even retaliate, is what makes this just so effective. But all in all, again, it is just the fact that he can bring in that crazy poke with lethality, making it insanely stronger than it should be. His overall damage output with his passive isn't anything to laugh at either, and he's got a pretty solid CC ultimate ability which can help him keep the target in place to fully burst them out with his long ranged abilities. So taking a very quick look at the build, you want to run Deathfire Touch on him for your masteries, and then for your items you want to run Youmuu's and Knight's Edge, and even a Duskblade with the Manamune for your auto attack damage, and then top it off with either a Last Whisper or a Guardian's Angel. Now last but not least, before we go into a few honorable mentions, is going to be another ADC being Miss Fortune. Now Miss Fortune, just like Varus, is ridiculously strong, but she's strong because not only does she have a very good laning phase and just can dish out a lot of damage and it's hard to deal with it, but at the same time, her ultimate has to be one of the most disgusting ultimates at the very moment. Now her ultimate does deal physical damage, which is why getting lethality and also the Black Cleaver will apply not only all that lethality or armor penetration on every single target you hit, but Black Cleaver will reduce the armor of every single target hit as well. So not only are you helping your team, but your ultimate is just consistently dealing more and more damage. And then just take into account of how much area it can cover, whether you're playing Miss Fortune as an ADC going pure damage, lethality, and Black Cleaver, or even playing her as a support with the Black Cleaver as well, it doesn't really matter. You're going to be strong, she's a flex pick, and she is just insanely good at the very moment. So here's the build that you want to run when playing Miss Fortune. Just like Varus, you want to run Deathfire Touch because it just synergizes with your ultimate that much better, and late game you will literally shred people down in seconds. And for items, again, to no surprise, lethality, Youmuu's, Duskblade, Knight's Edge, Black Cleaver, Last Whisper. Very, very familiar items by now, but again, it is what it is. It's just simply what is strong. Now before I end off the video, there's three very quick honorable mentions that I want to talk about, the first of which being Zed. Now I didn't want to include Zed and Talon in the list since they're very similar in what they do and how they build and how they work, but Zed is also very strong at the very moment. But Talon just has overall better stats and his statistics are just much higher. But personally, I prefer Zed over Talon, but again, it really just depends on which one you prefer yourself. Following this, there's also Jhin as an ADC, but I don't want to include too many ADC champions as well. I mean, Miss Fortune, Quinn technically, Graves technically, and also Varus are all more or less ADCs, so gotta make room for other champions, but Jhin again with the lethality, Deathfire Touch, very, very strong. And last but not least, sort of a different kind of odd one is going to be Zac. Now again, with all the lethality champions, they just absolutely destroy champions that do not have any armor. They just pretty much deal true damage, while Zac can stack the shit out of armor, has a lot of initiation, can build a lot of HP as well, and he can get on these backline champions like Jhin, like Miss Fortune, like Varus, people that chill in the back, can do a lot of damage from afar, but don't really have a lot of ways to escape and make it kind of a living hell for them. But either way guys, that is about it for this video. If you did enjoy it, hit it with that like button to show your support. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you for my next video. Peace.